Hey guys, so today I want to go over taking care of your gear. I went on an overnight camping trip and figured I'd bring you along as I'm taking care of my gear, talk a little bit about what I do, when I do it, how I do it, uh, so on and so forth. And I know taking care of gear is not new to a lot of people, but there is one piece of gear that is very often overlooked, and that one I'm actually going to go into a little bit of detail. Uh, First of all, any of the dishes I made, go in the sink, wash them up. And usually for my overnighters, that's just a spoon and my canteen cup. So that doesn't take long at all. One thing I do when I'm packing up at camp is I just take whatever cordage I have and just kind of wad it up and throw it in my pack so I don't forget it. And the reason for that is I don't want to wind it up because I'll just have to unwind it when I get home to wind it up the way I like to do it. That's one thing I'm going to show you here in a little bit in detail. All my cordage is pre-cut into different different lengths. I have some 2.5 footers, some 5-foot pieces, some 10-foot pieces, and a couple of 20-foot pieces. I find those work best for me out here. Anyway, so what I did was I just grabbed a scrap piece of 2x4, drilled some holes in it, took some of those old cheap metal tent stakes and cut off the hook part, so you end up with just that. And then I wrote on the scrap piece of 2x, and I'll show you all this too. I wrote the lengths between the different holes. All right, so as you see, I have 4 holes drilled into this scrap piece of 2x. Now, if I put these stakes in these 2 holes, that's for my 2.5 foot pieces of paracord. If I have my stakes like that, it's for my 5-footers. Like that's for my 10-footers. And then that's for my 20s. Today, all I have to wind up are my 10-footers, which is usually pretty average. Usually what I mostly use. But the reason I made this jig is for the way I wind up my paracord. Well, all of my cordage, I wind up like this. I'll try to do this with a tripod sitting right in between me and the block here. So what I simply do is lay my paracord out like this, so that I have a little tag end sitting past this first stake. Then I wind it in a figure 8. Trying to keep it tight as I'm doing this. I'll tell you what, this is a lot easier without a camera in front of you. So the end of my paracord is just about as long as the distance between these stakes, which is good. So now I'm going to grab all of this paracord, slip it off of these stakes, and then from here I'm going to take the end of the paracord and just wrap. Usually I like a little bit more paracord, so I'm not going to do this all the way, just to give you an idea. You can just kind of wrap this however you want. I'll usually have quite a bit more, but it's just tied off right there. Now with this is the only knot you'll get in this paracord as you're undoing it, is that very end piece. This doing or winding this up figure 8 style makes it so nice. From here, when you grab some paracord and you need to use it, you just grab the free end here and just pull it out. Pull out as much as you need when you need. No knots. And like I said, the only knot you'll have is right there at the end. When I do it right, I have a knot that doesn't come undone like that, but it's better than, even if you just if you wind up your paracord like that and then just do that number like most people do, you're gonna get knots. So that's why I wind up my paracord like that, and I have it do it the different lengths, so I know exactly what length of paracord I'm getting. I know if I grab a bundle of paracord that's that long, that's a 5-foot piece. If it's a few inches longer, it's a 10-foot piece. Just makes things so much easier as far as dealing with your cord. All right, so that's that. Another thing I always do, not always, my tarp. If it was rainy or snowy, or even just cold enough to get frost on it in the morning, I'll bring it out of my pack, or I'll take it out of my pack. I'll go hang it up in the bathroom to dry. If it was bad enough to get dirty, like if I'm in a dusty area and wind's blowing, or if it's raining and gets muddy, I'll actually put it in the shower and wash it off and then hang it up to dry. You want to keep all your gear clean, and you do the same thing with a tent, because especially the sand out here, it's so fine you don't really think about it, but it's just like, sandpaper. It'll wear a hole through your tarp or tent. So definitely want to maintain those two pieces of equipment, because you don't want to neglect it and take it out one night and it start raining and you just get soaking wet because you've neglected to take care of it. If something happens to a piece of gear and it gets broken or lost, go out and replace it just as soon as you can. Like on this trip, I carry 2 of these canteens, and on this trip, I had my canteen a little too close to the fire when we stoked it, and I don't know if you can see this too well, but it blew a hole in the side. So, I need to replace a canteen. In fact, a couple years ago, I came close to blowing a hole in the side of the other canteen in pretty much an identical spot. Actually, not pretty much. It really is an identical spot. So these canteens have a weak spot right there when it's close to heat. So I will be replacing both of these canteens. These are basically military issue knockoffs, and I wanted actual military issue, but I couldn't find them when I got those. So I've basically just been waiting for an excuse to get the good ones. Now I have one. This is when you get back from camping, another thing to go through is if you use a sleeping bag, or if you're a hammocker and use a top quilt and under quilt, wash that stuff. If it didn't get dirty at all, you could push it off, a few 2-3 camping trips, but I like to wash it, as soon as I get back. Just throwing, I use I use a sleeping bag in my hammock, and yeah, it gets pretty cold here in a hammock during the winter. I have found ways to mitigate that with some of the other stuff I carry, but it actually gets surprisingly dirty. Well, I guess not surprisingly, because with the amount of beer I drink while camping, I'm always getting up in the middle of the night multiple times to pee. And, well, it's so cold out, you don't want to get out of your sleeping bag. So I kind of just swing my legs over the hammock, stand up with the sleeping bag still around me, and just unzip it as far as I have to take care of business. So my sleeping bag gets pretty dirty, so I wash it after every trip. If you can get away without washing your sleeping gear after every trip, go for it. But you still want to maintain it. Anything you used that's a one-time use thing in your pack, replace it after every trip. Any food you've eaten out of your pack, like I keep Metrix bars, Mountain House meals, and instant potatoes. Sometimes I bring other food with me. Sometimes I just eat what's in my pack. If I eat what's in my pack, as soon as I get back, I replace it. As you're going through your pack and making sure you have everything, reorganize it. Just makes life so much easier. Just take that little bit of time when you come back from a trip, and when you go out on your next trip, it just makes it so much easier, especially if it's a last minute trip, which a lot of mine are. A lot of mine are, a buddy gives me a call and says, "Hey, let's go camping tonight." Okay. When you get back, another good thing to do is sharpen all your blades. And you really shouldn't be sharpening your blades. You should just be honing your blades. Unless, if you're swinging your axe and processing firewood and you miss and hit the ground, yeah, then you may need to sharpen it. But for the most part, you should just be honing your blades. And this is when you want to do it, is when you get back. But a lot of this stuff has been pretty self-explanatory. Most of it you're probably already doing, but I'm going to bring out a piece of equipment that nobody really thinks about. All right, so this final piece of equipment that I'm going to talk about doesn't get talked about very much, but you definitely want to maintain this. How often you maintain it is going to depend on how often you use it, how dirty it gets, what you're using it for. But your boots, or any shoe wear, or any shoes you wear, whatever you wear for shoes, maintain them. Now with these are, solid leather boots. These are actually my firefighting boots, but I wear them all the time because, well, they're comfortable. Now, as you can see, they're pretty dusty. And, they were a lot worse. This is, I wiped a lot of the dust off when I'm taking them off and putting them on. But especially, leather boots really, really need to take care of these things. So what I do when I'm taking care of them, first thing I do is take a brush and brush off all the dirt. You can really see a difference here. Unlacing it and taking the false tongue out, you can see the difference where the dirt really gets in there and where the false tongue protects it. All right, so just gonna take my brush and brush off as much dirt and sand off as I can, really trying to get into these nooks and crannies. and really want to pay attention right in there, because a lot of stuff really likes to, it gets trapped and likes to hide in there. I do this every month or two, or during the summers when I'm on fire, I'll do this after every fire. So once you've got as much brushed off as you can, I take some leather cleaner and the products I like using for my boots or any leather is Obanoff's. I like their leather cleaner, and their heavy duty LP leather preservative is really great. All right, so anyways, the next step is I just spray the leather cleaner on my boots, and I just do a section at a time, and then take my brush again and I'll work it in there. And then I'll set the boots off aside, or set everything off to the side to dry. All right, so once it's all dry, and if you don't use the leather cleaner too heavily, I've noticed it will, your first boot will be pretty much dry by the time you're done with the second boot. So I take some of this, some of the Obanoff's heavy duty LP, and they're not paying me for this. I just really like their stuff. And just dab a little on your fingertips. Don't go heavy with this because if you go heavy with this, it'll keep your leather from being able to breathe. But you just really want to work it in, and I like, starting on one section of leather and moving on to the next. That way I don't forget any spots, or just really work it in there. This is going to help extend the life of your boots, or any leather. It's also going to help maintain its waterproofness. Or all right, and you just set the boot aside. Make sure you get your if you have false tongues, make sure you get those. And if you do it a little too heavily, your boots are gonna be a little greasy for a couple of days. That will wear out or wear off, once you wear them, and it's fine. But you just try to do a nice light coat of this stuff. Don't go too heavy. Like I said before, you need leather needs to breathe. So now I just let the Obanoff's kind of soak in, do its thing. I'll leave them alone until tomorrow, and I'll put them on. One thing some people like to do is they'll put Obanoff's on their shoelaces or bootlaces, so that it gets in the lace, and then as you lace and unlace your boots, you get a little bit more Obanoff's getting on those areas of leather. I don't really think it's necessary, as long as you get those areas really well as you're doing it, but that's just me. Well, that's about it. Just take care of your gear, and it'll take care of you. Any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.